Hi, welcome to Take 5, where we daily consider devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, My Utmost for His Highest. Today is January 31st, and the title of today's lesson is, Do You See Your Calling? Separated to the Gospel of God, Romans 1 and verse 1. In the New American Standard Bible, Romans 1 verse 1 reads, Paul, a bondservant of Christ Jesus, called as an apostle, set apart for the gospel of God. That translation gives more understanding of Chambers' opening statement. Our calling is not primarily to be holy men and women, but to be proclaimers of the gospel of God. The focus of today's study is to unhinge our eyes from looking at ourselves and instead, as Christ said, look to the fields for they are white for harvest. John 4 and verse 35. Paul was set apart for the gospel, not to the gospel. He was set aside for the proclaiming of the good news. And that is exactly the role of the believer, to be proclaimers. Chambers continues, the one all-important thing is that the gospel of God should be recognized as the abiding reality. The thoughts following that sentence can be somewhat confusing if not read correctly. Chambers goes over a brief list of what some people consider to be reality. You might think that human goodness is reality, or that holiness is reality, or heaven or hell, but the primary, most important reality is redemption, the need for the lost to be saved. He then says that the need to perceive this is the most vital need of the Christian worker today. In going into many churches today, you will find classes being taught on good marriage relationships or how to be a better parent, social values of the 21st century in the church. Chambers calls for the church to wake up and recognize that the most important reality is redemption. He goes on to say that redemption is the only reality. Dr. Chambers goes to great lengths to express the importance of sharing the gospel with the gospel with the lost, for without it they will go to hell. In the second paragraph, Chambers notes that as long as our eyes are focused on our own personal holiness, we will never even get close to the full reality of redemption. Christian workers fail because they place their desires for their own holiness above their desire to know God. Who and what is most important in your life? Is your focus constantly on self? Chambers says that God cannot deliver me while my interest is merely in my own character. Is Chambers just justified in being able to make such bold statements? Yes. When you consider that the final words of Jesus, as recorded in the book of Matthew, was instructions for what we are to be doing in his absence, making disciples, teaching, baptizing. Failure to do this is to fail in meeting standards issued by Christ in regards to the behavior of his beloved. Chambers calls for believers to have a reckless abandonment wherein they cast off their greatest interest in life from being themselves. Paul was not conscious of himself. He was recklessly abandoned, totally surrendered and separated by God for one purpose, to proclaim the gospel of God. As he wrote to the church in Galatia, it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me, Galatians 2 and verse 20. If you haven't yet read today's devotional from Dr. Chambers' book, I encourage you to do so, for it will enhance the time that we daily spend together. It's available free online. I invite you to share here your thoughts from today's reading, any questions that you might have. Also share prayer requests as well. And now may God's grace and peace be ours as we seek to live our utmost for his highest. God bless you. Thanks for being here today. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.